She went for a job interview, but the black CEO turned out to be someone from her past. Sienna Whitmore adjusted her pearl necklace one final time as she stepped out of her silver BMW in downtown Ridgeport. The gleaming towers of the financial district reflected her perfectly styled blonde hair and tailored navy suit. At 26, she embodied everything her prominent banking family expected: poised, educated, and destined for success within their exclusive social circle. Callahan and Company, she murmured, checking the address on her phone. The marketing firm's reputation preceded them. Known for landing Fortune 500 clients and maintaining an elite corporate culture, it was perfect for someone of her background. The elevator whizzed her to the 20th floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Ridgeport skyline. Sienna smiled confidently at the receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. Sienna Whitmore for the senior account executive interview, she announced, her voice carrying the refined accent of private schools and country clubs. Of course, Miss Whitmore. Mr. Callahan will see you shortly. Please have a seat. Sienna settled into a leather chair, mentally rehearsing her talking points. Her MBA from Northwestern, her internship at her father's investment firm, her connections throughout Ridgeport's business elite. She was exactly what they needed. Miss Whitmore. A deep, familiar voice called her name. She looked up and froze. Standing before her was Andre Callahan, the same Andre Callahan she'd known 12 years ago. The same warm brown eyes, the same confident smile, though now he wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit instead of the simple clothes she remembered from Eastbridge High School. Andre. The name escaped her lips before she could stop it. Sienna. His professional smile never wavered, though something flickered in his eyes. It's been a long time. Please come in. Her mind raced as she followed him into a corner office that screamed success. Awards lining the walls, a view of Cedar Bay, family photos on his mahogany desk. This couldn't be right. Andre Callahan, the scholarship kid from the wrong side of town, couldn't possibly be the CEO she was here to impress. I have to admit, I was surprised to see your resume cross my desk, Andre said, settling behind his desk with the ease of someone born to leadership. Sienna Whitmore. I remember that name. Heat rose in her cheeks. She remembered him, too. The brilliant boy who'd sat behind her in AP History, whose thoughtful comments had impressed even their demanding teacher. The same boy her friends had whispered wasn't their type, where he'd asked her to prom. You've done well for yourself, she managed, trying to regain her composure. Hard work pays off, he replied simply. Shall we begin the interview? For the next 30 minutes. Andre grilled her with questions that revealed both his business acumen and his ability to see right through her carefully constructed answers. This wasn't the awkward teenager she remembered. This was a man who'd built something extraordinary. One final question, Andre said, leaning back at his chair. What would you say to someone who thought you got this interview because of your family connections rather than your qualifications? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sienna met his gaze directly, seeing both the boy she'd once known and the powerful man he'd become. I'd tell them they're probably right, she said quietly, but I'd also tell them I intend to prove I belong here on my own merit. Something shifted in Andre's expression. Surprise, perhaps even respect. We'll be in touch, he said, standing to escort her out. As Sienna walked to the elevator, her heart pounded with more than just interview nerves. Andre Callahan, successful, confident, and undeniably attractive, had just turned her world upside down. Hello, my Stop Racism family. Thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive deeper into this beautiful love story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Do you believe love can truly conquer prejudice? Let us know in the comments. We love reading them, and trust me, your words motivate us to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means the world to us. and it drives us to create even more meaningful content for you. So, don't forget to comment, share, and keep spreading love. That evening, Sienna sat in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by the pale pink walls and white furniture that had defined her privileged upbringing. The family estate in Silver Grove overlooked Cedar Lake, a testament to generations of Whitmore wealth and social standing. "How did the interview go, sweetheart?" Her mother, Valerie Whitmore, appeared in the doorway holding 2 cups of chamomile tea. Even at home, she maintained the perfect appearance of a society matron. Blonde hair and a French twist, understated jewelry, designer loungewear. "It was unexpected," Sienna said, accepting the tea with trembling hands. "Oh, do they not appreciate your qualifications? I can't imagine why any company wouldn't jump at the chance to hire a Whitmore." Sienna stared into her teacup, seeing Andre's confident smile reflected in the amber liquid. "The CEO turned out to be someone I knew from high school. How wonderful. It's always nice when connections work in your favor. Was he from the country club? The yacht club? I'm trying to place the name Callahan." "Mom." Sienna looked up. "His name isn't Callahan. It's Andre Callahan. He owns the company." Valerie's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose slightly. "Callahan? I don't recall any Callahans from your social circle, dear." "He wasn't in my social circle." Sienna's voice came out smaller than she intended. "He was different." Her mother settled into the window seat, her expression thoughtful. "Different how?" The question hung between them, loaded with years of unspoken expectations. Sienna had been raised to understand that certain things were simply expected of Whitmore women. Marriage to appropriate men from appropriate families, children who would carry on the family legacy, a life lived within the safety of their established social boundaries. "He's black, Mom." The words felt strange on her tongue, as if she was confessing to some kind of crime. Valerie's teacup clinked against its saucer as she set it down. "I see. Well, that's quite modern of him to have achieved such success. Good for him." The carefully neutral tone spoke volumes. Sienna remembered her mother's subtle guidance over the years, the way she'd steer conversations away from certain topics, the way she'd expressed approval when Sienna dated boys like Spencer Langford or Preston Wilcox, sons of their family friends who fit seamlessly into their world. "You know, dear," Valerie continued, "there are several lovely young men I've been meaning to introduce you to. The Ellison boy just made partner at his law firm, and Harper's brother is doing wonderfully in investment banking. Perhaps it's time we arrange some dinner parties." Sienna nodded absently, but her thoughts remained fixed on Andre, the way he'd commanded that boardroom, the intelligence that sparkled in his eyes, the quiet confidence that came from earning every success through his own merit. "I should call Spencer," she said suddenly. "We haven't spoken in weeks." Spencer Langford represented everything her family valued. Old money, the right schools, a guaranteed place in their social hierarchy. He was handsome in a conventional way, polite to her parents, and completely predictable. He was also, she realized with startling clarity, nothing like Andre Callahan. "That's a wonderful idea," Valerie said, relief evident in her voice. "Spencer is such a nice boy. His mother and I were just discussing how perfect you two are together." As her mother left the room, Sienna picked up her phone to call Spencer, but instead found herself staring at her reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in her life, she wondered if being perfect meant being perfectly boring. The thought of Andre, successful, driven, authentic, made her question everything she'd been taught about who she was supposed to love. 3 days later, Sienna found herself in the most unlikely place, volunteering at the Ridgeport Food Bank in the Commons District. She'd been looking for ways to strengthen her resume, and community service seemed like an appropriate addition for someone seeking a position at a socially conscious marketing firm. She was sorting donated vegetables when a familiar voice made her look up. "Sienna, what are you doing here?" Andre stood in the doorway, wearing jeans and a simple gray t-shirt, his arms full of grocery bags. Without the corporate armor, he looked younger, more approachable, and devastatingly handsome. Community service, she said, then immediately felt foolish for how calculated it sounded. I mean, I wanted to help. No excuse needed. I've been volunteering here for 8 years. He set down the bags and began unpacking them with practiced efficiency. Every Saturday morning, rain or shine, Sienna watched him work, noting how the other volunteers greeted him with genuine warmth. This wasn't a photo opportunity or resume builder for Andre. This was simply who he was. Need help with those? She asked, moving to assist him. Sure. The canned goods go on that shelf. Produce over here. He handed her a bag of apples, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. So, how are you enjoying the nonprofit world? It's different than I expected. She arranged the apples carefully, hyper-aware of his presence beside her. More personal. That's the point. Andre smiled, and she noticed the small scar above his left eyebrow that she remembered from high school. When you see who you're helping, it changes everything. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, falling into an easy rhythm. Sienna found herself stealing glances at Andre as he interacted with the other volunteers, a retired teacher named Mrs. Alvarez, a college student named Tyler, a young mother named Tasha, whose children played nearby. Andre tells the best stories, Tasha said, approaching Sienna during their break. He was just telling us about his business trip to New York. Made us all feel like we were right there with him. Sienna looked over at Andre, who was crouched down helping Tasha's 5-year-old son with a coloring book. The sight stirred something unexpected in her chest. He's always been good with people, Sienna said, surprising herself with the admission. You two know each other? Mrs. Alvarez asked, joining their conversation. From high school, Sienna replied carefully. Oh, you must have some stories. Andre never talks about those days much. He was focused on getting into college. Mrs. Alvarez's eyes twinkled with curiosity. Sienna felt heat rise in her cheeks. She remembered Andre from high school. Always polite, always hardworking, but existing on the periphery of her social world. She'd never given him much thought then, despite his obvious intelligence and kindness. We had AP history together, she said finally. That boy was probably valedictorian material, Mrs. Alvarez said fondly. Still is if you ask me. Running that company, mentoring young people. Always here helping us. Mrs. Alvarez, are you telling embarrassing stories about me? Andre appeared beside them, his smile easy and warm. Just giving Sienna here some insight into what kind of man you turn out to be. Mrs. Alvarez replied with a wink. Andre looked at Sienna, and she saw something vulnerable in his expression for just a moment. I hope it's not too disappointing. Quite the opposite, Sienna found herself saying, and meant it. As they finished their volunteer shift, Andre walked Sienna to her car. The late morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, and a Ridgeport skyline glittered in the distance. Thank you for today, Sienna said, fumbling with her keys. I learned a lot about food bank operations. About a lot of things, he asked, amusement in his voice. You're not who I expected you to be. Is that good or bad? He asked quietly. Sienna considered the question, thinking about the man she'd observed today. Generous with his time, genuine in his interactions, comfortable in his own skin in a way that had nothing to do with wealth or status. It's surprising, she said finally, and I don't get surprised very often. Umbra smiled. Well, Sienna Whitmore, I'd say that's a good place to start. The call came 2 days later while Sienna was having lunch at the Ridgeport Tennis Club with her best friend, Harper Wells. They'd been discussing weekend plans when Sienna's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Sienna Whitmore. Sienna, it's Andre Callahan. I have some good news. We'd like to offer you the position. Sienna nearly dropped her phone. Really? I mean, thank you. That's wonderful. There's one catch, Andre continued, and she could hear the smile in his voice. We need you to start immediately. We just landed a major client, and I need someone to help with the presentation next week. Are you available this afternoon to discuss the details? Harper raised her eyebrows at Sienna's obvious excitement, mouthing, Who is it? with theatrical curiosity. This afternoon? Yes, absolutely. Where should I meet you? Actually, I'm stuck in meetings at the office until late. Would you be willing to meet at Solstice Coffee House? It's near the Commons District. I know it's not the most professional setting. That's perfect, Sienna interrupted, already gathering her purse. What time? 6 o'clock. It's the original location on 42nd Street. After hanging up, Sienna found Harper staring at her with undisguised interest. Okay, spill. Who is that? You look like you just won the lottery. I got the job, Sienna said, trying to sound casual while her heart raced. The marketing firm. That's fantastic. But why you look like you're about to hyperventilate? Sienna took a deep breath. The CEO is someone I knew from high school. And it's complicated. Harper leaned forward, her blue eyes gleaming. Complicated. How? Is he married? Unattractive? Bad breath? Sienna searched for the right words. He's out what my family would expect. Understanding dawned in Harper's expression. They've been friends since childhood, navigating the same social expectations and unspoken rules that govern their privileged world. Harper said carefully. Different background. Very different. Sienna stood, smoothing her skirt. I need to go home and change. Sienna, Harper caught her arm. Just be careful, okay? You know how people talk. The warning followed Sienna home as she agonized over what to wear to a casual coffee meeting with her new boss. She settled on dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater. Professional but approachable. Solstice Coffee House turned out to be a tiny, cramped cafe filled with university students and the rich aroma of freshly roasted beans. Sienna spotted Andre immediately, seated at a small table near the window with his laptop open and papers spread around him. Sorry about the venue, he said as she approached. This place has the best coffee in Ridgeport, and I needed the caffeine. It's charming, Sienna said, meaning it. The worn wooden floors and mismatched furniture gave the place character that her usual haunts lacked. Andre ordered her a lavender latte, somehow remembering her preference for floral flavors from their high school days, while he explained the client project. A tech startup needed a complete rebranding campaign, and they wanted fresh perspectives. I'll be honest, Andre said, leaning forward with his coffee. You were my first choice for this project. Sienna's stomach dropped. Oh, you were my only choice, he continued, his brown eyes serious. Your ideas during the interview were exactly what this client needs. You understand their target demographic, because I'm their target demographic. Wealthy 20-somethings with too much time on their hands. Sienna asked dryly. Andre laughed, a rich sound that made several students look their way. Educated professionals who value authenticity and social responsibility. There's a difference. They spent the next 2 hours discussing strategy, and Sienna found herself leaning closer as Andre explained his vision for the company. His passion was infectious, his intelligence undeniable. When he rolled up his sleeves to sketch out campaign ideas, she noticed the strength in his hands, the focused intensity in his expression. You really built all this from nothing? She asked during a lull in conversation. Scholarship to Ridgeport U. Worked 3 jobs to pay for living expenses. Started the company in my 1-bedroom apartment 5 years ago. Andre's tone was matter-of-fact, without a trace of self-pity. So people say I got lucky. I prefer to think I got determined. Sienna thought about her own path. Private schools paid for by trust funds. Internships secured through family connections. A safety net that had never allowed her to truly fail. That's incredibly impressive, she said quietly. It's just life, Andre replied, but something in his expression suggested her approval mattered. As they prepared to leave, a light rain had begun to fall. Andre walked her to her car, both of them reluctant to end the evening. Andre, Sienna said, turning to face him under the glow of a street light. Why did you really hire me? We both know there were more qualified candidates. He was quiet for a long moment, rain catching in his dark hair. Maybe I wanted to see if Sienna Whitmore was as interesting as I remembered from AP history. Andre smiled. the expression soft and genuine. More interesting, much more. As Sienna drove home through the rainy Ridgeport streets, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Andre had looked at her. Not as the privileged princess she'd always been, but as someone worth knowing. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Sienna stared at her reflection in her bedroom mirror, applying lipstick for the third time that morning. It was her first official day at Callahan & Company, and she couldn't decide if her nervousness was about the new job or about seeing Andre again. "You look lovely, sweetheart," her mother said, appearing in the doorway with a cup of coffee. "Very professional." "Thanks, Mom." Sienna capped the lipstick and turned around. "I'm excited to get started." Valerie Whitmore settled into the chair by Sienna's vanity, her expression thoughtful. "You know, your father mentioned that he looked into this Andre Callahan." Sienna's stomach clenched. "He did what?" "Just some basic research, dear. Nothing inappropriate. It's what any responsible parent would do when their daughter is working for someone new." Valerie sipped her coffee delicately. "He found some interesting information, such as Mr. Callahan grew up in Rainer Terrace, raised by a single mother who worked as a nurse, scholarship student, worked his way through college, started his business with a small loan." Valerie's tone remained neutral, but Sienna heard the underlying message. Quite a success story, really. "But," Sienna prompted, recognizing her mother's pattern. "But, different worlds, sweetheart. Your father is concerned about the appropriateness of the situation. You working so closely with someone from such a different background." Heat rose in Sienna's cheeks. "Mom, this is 2024. People work with all kinds of different people." "Of course they do. That's not what I'm saying." Valerie set down her coffee cup carefully. "I'm simply suggesting that you be mindful of professional boundaries. It would be easy for someone to misinterpret a close working relationship, especially with someone who might see you as what?" Sienna's voice came out sharper than intended. "As an opportunity, dear. You're a Whitmore. That name opens doors, provides connections." The words hit Sienna like a physical blow. The suggestion that Andre might be using her, that his interest in her could be calculated rather than genuine, made her feel sick. "That's not who he is," she said quietly. "How can you be sure? You barely knew him in high school. And people change. Success can change people." Valerie stood and moved to the window, looking out at the manicure gardens that surrounded their estate. "I'm not trying to be cruel, Sienna. I'm trying to protect you." After her mother left, Sienna sat on her bed for a long moment, staring at her phone. Spencer Langford had called twice the night before, leaving messages about dinner plans and a charity gala his family was hosting. Safe, predictable Spencer, who represented everything her family valued. She thought about Andre's hands, sketching campaign ideas, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his work, the easy warmth in his voice when he spoke to the volunteers at the food bank. Could her mother be right? Could his interest in her be strategic rather than sincere? Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Looking forward to working with you today, Andre." Sienna stared at the message, analyzing every word for hidden meaning. Was this professional courtesy or something more? How could she tell the difference? The drive to downtown Ridgeport gave her time to think, but by the time she reached the office building, she was more confused than ever. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt endless. Her reflection multiplied in the polished metal doors. A young woman caught between two worlds, uncertain which one she belonged in. "Sienna, welcome to the team," called Monica Reyes, the office manager Andre had introduced her to during her interview. "Andre's in back-to-back meetings this morning, but he left instructions for your orientation." The next few hours passed in a blur of introductions, paperwork, and system tutorials. Sienna threw herself into learning the company's processes, grateful for the distraction from returning thoughts. It wasn't until late afternoon that she saw Andre again. He appeared at her desk, looking harried, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "How's your first day going?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her desk. "Good. Everyone's been very welcoming." Sienna kept her voice professionally neutral, hyper-aware of her mother's warnings. Andre studied her face with those perceptive brown eyes. "Everything okay? You seem different than yesterday. Just focused on work," she replied, turning back to her computer screen. She felt rather than saw Andre's confusion at her sudden coldness. After a moment, he stood. "Well, if you need anything, just let me know. We're glad to have you here." As he walked away, Sienna felt a stab of regret, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. Different worlds, professional boundaries, ambitious young men who might see her as an opportunity. That evening, she called Spencer back. "Sienna, finally, I was beginning to think you were avoiding me," he said with his usual easy charm. "Sorry, I started a new job today. It's been hectic. Right, the marketing thing. How very modern of you." Spencer's tone suggested he found her career aspirations amusing. "Listen, Mother's hosting a dinner party Saturday night. All the usual crowd. I thought you might like to come as my date." The usual crowd. Sienna knew exactly who he meant. The same people they'd grown up with, the same conversations about the same topics, the same predictable evening that would unfold exactly as expected. "That sounds nice," she heard herself saying. "Excellent. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. Wear that blue dress I like." After hanging up, Sienna sat in her silent apartment, wondering why doing the right thing felt so much like giving up. The client presentation was scheduled for Friday morning, and by Thursday evening, Sienna and Andre had been working together for 12-hour days. Despite her attempts to maintain professional distance, she found herself drawn into his passion for the project. "The whole campaign hinges on authenticity," Andre explained, standing before the whiteboard covered in their brainstorming sessions. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened, and there was an energy about him that was completely captivating. "This generation can smell fake marketing from a mile away." Sienna studied their campaign mock-ups spread across the conference table. "What if we focused on real customer stories instead of stock photography? Let people see themselves reflected in the brand." "Exactly." Andre turned to her with such genuine enthusiasm that she forgot to maintain her careful distance. "You get it. This isn't about selling them a product. It's about connecting with their values." They worked until nearly 10 o'clock, ordering Chinese takeout and spreading fortune cookies across the conference table like offerings to the marketing gods. As the city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Sienna found herself relaxing despite her reservations. "Can I ask you something?" Andre said during a break in their planning. Sienna nodded, suddenly aware of how intimate the dimly lit conference room felt with just the two of them. "Why did you really apply for this job? With your connections, you could have walked into any major corporation in Ridgeport." The question caught her off guard. She could give him the prepared answer about wanting to work for a smaller, more innovative company. Instead, she found herself being honest. "Because I wanted to prove I could get something on my own merit. My whole life, doors have opened because of my last name. I want to see if I was actually good at anything." "And what did you discover?" Sienna looked at their campaign materials, thinking about the creative solutions they developed together, the way Andre had listened to her ideas and built upon them. "That I might be better at this than I thought," she admitted. "You are." Andre's voice was quiet but certain. "You have instincts that can't be taught. You see connections other people miss." The sincerity in his voice made Sienna's chest tighten. This didn't sound like someone who saw her as merely an opportunity. "Andre," she began, then stopped. How could she ask if his interest in her was genuine without revealing her own growing feelings? "What is it?" Before she could answer, her phone rang. Spencer's name flashed on the screen, and she felt Andre's attention shift as she declined the call. "Important?" Andre asked, his tone carefully neutral. "Not really." Sienna turned back to their work, but the moment of vulnerability had passed. The next morning arrived with typical Ridgeport drizzle and a nervous energy that preceded major presentations. Sienna arrived early to find Andre already in the conference room, reviewing their materials one final time. "Ready for this?" he asked, looking up as she entered. as ready as we'll ever be. She set down her coffee and checked their presentation setup. Andre, I wanted to thank you. For what? For trusting me with this project. For listening to my ideas. She paused, searching for words that wouldn't reveal too much. For seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself. Andre was quiet for a moment, his brown eyes serious. Sienna, you need to know something. I didn't hire you because of your family name or your connections. I know that now. Do you? He moved closer, his voice dropping to nearly a whisper. Because I've been watching you second-guess yourself all week. You've been different since Monday. More guarded. If someone said something to make you doubt, the clients are here, Monica announced from the doorway, interrupting whatever Andre had been about to say. The presentation went flawlessly. Sienna found herself speaking with a confidence she didn't know she possessed, building on Andre's points and anticipating the client's questions. They worked together like they'd been partners for years rather than days. Exceptional work, the lead client said as they wrapped up. We'd like to move forward immediately. After the clients left, the office erupted in congratulations. Sienna felt a rush of genuine pride. She had contributed to this success, earned it through her own efforts. Celebration drinks tonight, Andre announced to the team. Everyone's invited. Especially our newest team member who just knocked it out of the park. As the office buzzed with excited chatter, Andre approached Sienna's desk. You were incredible in there, he said, his smile warm and proud. I knew you had it in you. Looking at him, successful, genuine, generous with his praise, Sienna felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't about professional boundaries or family expectations. This was about recognizing something real when she saw it. Andre, she said, making a decision that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. About those celebration drinks. Yes, I like to come, if the invitation still stands. His smile was worth every risk she was taking. It definitely still stands. As her coworkers filed out for the weekend, Sienna realized she was about to cross a line she couldn't uncross. For the first time in her life, she was choosing her own path instead of following the one laid out for her. It felt like stepping off a cliff and learning to fly. The celebration at Murphy's Pub in Capitol Hill was in full swing by the time Sienna arrived. She'd gone home to change from her business attire into dark jeans and a soft green sweater, wanting to fit in with a more casual atmosphere. She spotted Andre immediately, surrounded by their coworkers at a large table near the back. Sienna, Monica waved her over. We saved you a seat. The seat happened to be directly across from Andre, who looked up as she approached with an expression that made her pulse quicken. He'd changed too, trading a suit for dark jeans and a navy button-down that brought out the depth of his brown eyes. I wasn't sure you'd make it, he said as she settled in her chair. Neither was I, she admitted, accepting a glass of wine from Tyler, the office's creative director. The conversation flowed easily around the table. Stories about difficult clients, shared jokes about office quirks, genuine camaraderie that Sienna had never experienced in her usual social circles. She found herself laughing more freely than she had in months, caught up in the infectious energy of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. So, Sienna, said Alex, one of the account managers, what made you want to leave the family business for the startup world? I never worked for the family business, Sienna replied, then caught herself. She'd revealed more than she intended about her privileged background. Lucky you, Alex continued, oblivious to her discomfort. Corporate nepotism is the worst. At least here, we all had to earn our way in. Sienna felt heat rise in her cheeks, acutely aware that everyone at this table had worked harder for their positions than she'd ever had to work for anything. Andre must have sensed her discomfort because he smoothly changed the subject. Speaking of earning our way, he said, raising his glass, here's to Sienna for absolutely crushing her first client presentation. You're officially part of the family now. The table erupted in cheers and congratulations, but Sienna barely heard them. She was too focused on the word family and the way Andre had said it. with warmth and inclusion that made her chest tight with unexpected emotion. As the evening wore on and their coworkers gradually drifted away, Sienna found herself alone with Andre at the increasingly empty table. The pub's atmosphere had grown more intimate with the late hour, soft lighting, and the distant sound of live music creating a cocoon around their conversation. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for earlier, when Alex was talking about nepotism, you handled it fine on your own." Andre traced patterns on the condensation of his beer glass. "But for what it's worth, I don't care how you got in the door. What matters is what you do once you're there. Is that really how you see it?" Sienna asked, genuinely curious. "Don't you ever resent people who had advantages you didn't have?" Andre considered the question carefully. "I used to, when I was younger, angrier, but resentment is exhausting, and it doesn't change anything. I'd rather focus on building something better." His maturity impressed her, highlighting how sheltered her own perspective had been. "I've never had to think about any of this before, about how my background affects how people see me, or what opportunities I've had that others haven't. And now I'm starting to realize that there's a difference between acknowledging privilege and being paralyzed by guilt about it." Sienna met his eyes directly. "You've helped me see that." Something shifted in Andre's expression, and for a moment, Sienna thought he might reach across the table for her hand. Instead, her phone buzzed insistently with an incoming call. Spencer's name lit up the screen for the third time that evening. "You should probably take that," Andre said, his tone carefully neutral. Sienna declined to call again, but the spell was broken. She became suddenly aware of how this must look. Sienna Whitmore of Ridgeport Society, having intimate drinks with her black boss, while her appropriate suitor called repeatedly. "I should go," she said, reaching for her purse. "Sienna, wait." Andre stood as she did, his hand briefly touching her arm. "If there's something you need to tell me, about Spencer, about your family's expectations, I'd rather hear it from you." The gentleness in his voice nearly undid her. He knew, of course he knew, about the social pressures she faced, the expectations that surrounded someone like her. The question was whether he understood that she was beginning not to care. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Most things worth having are." Andre's smile was sad, but understanding. "Just don't make decisions based on what other people think you should do. Make them based on what you actually want." As Sienna drove home through the quiet Ridgeport streets, her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Where have you been?" Spencer's voice carried a note of irritation. "I've been calling for hours. I was at a work function." "What's wrong?" "Mother's dinner party is tomorrow night. Remember, she needs a final head count. You're still coming, aren't you?" Sienna pulled into her driveway, staring at her family's estate through the windshield. The perfectly manicured grounds and imposing colonial architecture represented everything she'd been raised to value. Stability, tradition, social standing. Of course, she heard herself saying, "I'll be there." But even as she agreed, Andre's words echoed in her mind. "Make decisions based on what you actually want." The first time in her life, Sienna wasn't sure what that was. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth, and Sienna found herself standing in front of her closet, paralyzed by the choice between two dresses. The blue one Spencer preferred, conservative, elegant, designed to blend seamlessly into their social circle. The red one she bought on impulse, but never worn. Bold, vibrant, utterly unlike anything a proper Whitmore daughter would choose. She chose the blue dress. The Whitmore estate in Silver Grove rivaled her own family's home in grandeur, all stone facades and manicure gardens overlooking Cedar Lake. Sienna had attended dozens of similar gatherings over the years, moving through the same conversations with the same people about the same topics. "Sienna, darling." Mrs. Langford embraced her with the enthusiasm reserved for daughters-in-law in waiting. "You look absolutely perfect. Spencer has been watching the door all evening." Spencer appeared at her elbow immediately, resplendent in his navy blazer and confident smile. He was undeniably handsome in a way of men born to privilege, tall, blonde, with the easy charm that came from never having to worry about acceptance. "You're stunning," he said, kissing her cheek. "Come, there are some people I want you to meet." The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Sienna smiled and nodded in all the right places, discussing vacation homes and charity boards and mutual acquaintances with practiced ease. But her mind kept wandering to Andre, wondering what he was doing on this Saturday evening, whether he was thinking about their conversation at the pub. "Don't you think, Sienna?" She realized Spencer was looking at her expectantly, along with a small group they'd joined by the fireplace. "I'm sorry, what was the question?" "Preston was just saying how important it is to maintain standards," Spencer said, his hand possessive on her lower back. "Some companies these days are more concerned with appearing diverse than with actual qualifications." Sienna's blood ran cold. "What do you mean by that?" Preston Wilcox, heir to a shipping fortune and Spencer's closest friend, leaned forward conspiratorially. "Just that sometimes the best candidate isn't the one who gets hired, if you know what I mean. Political correctness, and all that." "I don't think I do know what you mean," Sienna said, her voice deadly quiet. Now, interrupted Mrs. Langford, sensing tension. "Let's not discuss business at a social gathering." "Sienna, dear, you must tell us about your new job. Spencer mentioned you're working for some little marketing company." The dismissive tone in little marketing company made Sienna's temper flare. She thought about Andre building his business from nothing, about the brilliant campaign they developed together, about the respect and admiration in his employees' eyes. "Callahan and Company," she said clearly. "We just landed a major tech client with a campaign that prioritizes authenticity over traditional demographics." "How modern," said Sarah Langford, Spencer's sister, with barely concealed disdain. "Though I do hope you're not planning to make a career of it. It's one thing to have a little job before marriage, but afterward what?" Sienna asked. "Well, you'll have more important things to focus on. Family, social obligations, supporting Spencer's career." Sarah's smile was sharp. After all, a man's success reflects on his wife's ability to create the right environment at home. Sienna looked around the circle of faces, privileged, insular, utterly convinced of their own superiority. These were the people she'd grown up with, the world she'd always been expected to embrace. But now, seeing it through Andre's eyes, she felt like she was suffocating. "Excuse me," she said abruptly, turning away from the group. Spencer caught up with her on the terrace, where she stood breathing in the cool evening air. "Sienna, what's wrong? You've been distant all evening." She turned to face him, this man who represented everything her family wanted for her. "Spencer, do you ever wonder if there's more to life than this?" "More than what?" "This." She gestured toward the house, full of guests. The same people, the same conversations, the same assumptions about how life should be lived. Spencer's expression grew concerned. "You're not making sense. This is our life, Sienna. These are our people. What's brought this on?" How could she explain that working with Andre had shown her a different way of being in the world? That she'd discovered passion and purpose and genuine connection existed outside the narrow boundaries of their social circle. "I think I need some air," she said instead. "I'll drive you home." Spencer offered immediately. The ride to Silver Grove passed in uncomfortable silence, Spencer clearly confused by her mood, while Sienna wrestled with thoughts she couldn't put into words. When they reached her driveway, he turned to face her. "Sienna, talk to me. If something's bothering you, we can work through it together." She looked at his earnest face, this good man who loved her in the only way he knew how, safely, conventionally, without challenging her to grow or change. "Spencer, what do you see when you look at me?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, who am I to you? What do you love about me?" Spencer seemed startled by the question. "You're Sienna Whitmore. You're beautiful, well-bred, perfect for the life we'll build together. You'll be an amazing wife and mother. But what do you love about me specifically? About who I am as a person?" He was quiet for a long moment, and Sienna realized he couldn't answer, because he'd never really thought about it. To Spencer, she was an idea rather than an individual, the appropriate partner who would complete his predetermined life plan. "I should go inside," she said softly. "Sienna, wait. Have I done something wrong? Said something to upset you?" "No, it's been fair. You haven't done anything wrong." And that, she realized, was exactly the problem. After he drove away, Sienna sat her car in the darkness, finally understanding what Andre had meant about making decisions based on what she actually wanted. For 26 years, she'd been living other people's expectations of her life. It was time to figure out what her own expectations might be. Monday morning brought the kind of crisp October weather that made Ridgeport shine. But Sienna barely noticed as she hurried into the office building. She'd spent the weekend in turmoil, replaying every conversation, every meaningful look, every moment of connection she'd shared with Andre. She found him in his office, reviewing quarterly reports with the same intense focus she'd come to admire. When he looked up and smiled, her heart did something acrobatic in her chest. "How was your weekend?" he asked, and she heard genuine interest in his voice. "Enlightening," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Andre, I want to talk to you about something." Before he could respond, Monica appeared in the doorway, looking flustered. "Andre, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a Valerie Whitmore here to see Sienna. She says it's urgent." Sienna's stomach dropped. Her mother never came to her workplace, never intruded on her professional life. This could only mean one thing. "Send her in," Sienna said, her voice barely steady. Valerie Whitmore swept into Andre's office like a force of nature, her designer suit and perfectly styled hair announcing her status before she said a word. Her gaze took in the office, Andre's awards, his family photos, the view of the city, with cool assessment. "Mother," Sienna stood quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I came to meet your boss," Valerie said, extending a manicured hand to Andre. "Valerie Whitmore, Sienna's mother." Andre rose with careful politeness. "Andre Callahan, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Whitmore." "Mr. Callahan." Valerie's smile was perfectly controlled. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd see where Sienna spent her days." The lie was transparent, but Andre handled it with grace. "Not at all. Sienna is a valued member of our team. You should be very proud of her work." "Oh, I am. Though I must admit, I'm surprised she's chosen to work in such a small operation. With her qualifications, she can have her pick up positions at major corporations." Sienna felt heat flood her cheeks at her mother's obvious condescension. "Mom, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Nonsense, dear. I'm sure Mr. Callahan understands that parents worry about their children's career choices." Valerie's tone remained pleasant, but her meaning was clear. After all, at some point, Sienna will need to focus on more important priorities: marriage, family, social obligations. "I think," Andre said quietly, "that Sienna is capable of making her own decisions about her priorities." Valerie's smile sharpened. "Of course she is. Though sometimes young people can be influenced by new environments, new people. It's natural for parents to be concerned when their children start making choices that seem out of character." The subtle accusation hung in the air like poison. Sienna saw Andre's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly, and she realized her mother was suggesting he was manipulating her somehow. "Perhaps," Valerie continued, "it will be better if Sienna explored opportunities that were more suitable to her background. I know several firms that will be delighted to have her." "Mother, stop." Sienna's voice came out sharper than she intended. "I'm perfectly happy here. Are you, darling? Because Spencer mentioned you seemed quite distressed at the Langfords' party. He's worried about you." "We all are." The mention of Spencer was the final straw. Sienna looked between her mother and Andre, seeing the careful way he was holding himself, the professional mask that had slipped over his features. "We should discuss this at home," Sienna said, her voice tight. "Actually," Andre said, standing, "I think that's a good idea. Sienna, why don't you take the rest of the day off? We can handle things here." The dismissal however kindly meant, felt like a rejection. Sienna nodded numbly and gathered her things while her mother made polite conversation about the Ridgeport weather. In the elevator, Valerie finally dropped her facade. "Sienna, what exactly do you think you're doing?" "Working, supporting myself, living my life." "This isn't living, it's rebellion, and it's going to end badly for everyone involved." Sienna stared at her mother's reflection in the elevator doors. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean that Spencer called your father yesterday. He's confused and hurt by your recent behavior. He thinks someone at that company might have an inappropriate influence on you." "Inappropriate how?" Valerie's silence was answering. "Mom," Sienna said carefully, "please tell me you didn't come here to warn Andre away from me. I came here to assess the situation, to see if my concerns were justified. And what did you conclude?" Valerie was quiet until they reached the parking garage. "I concluded that you're playing with fire, Sienna. And that young man, whatever his intentions, is going to get burned." As they stood beside their cars, Valerie's expression softened slightly. "I'm not the villain here, sweetheart. I'm trying to protect you both. This can't end well, and the longer it continues, the more painful it will be for everyone." "What if you're wrong?" Sienna asked quietly. "What if this could be something beautiful?" Valerie's smile was infinitely sad. "Oh, my dear girl, the world isn't ready for your kind of beautiful. Not yet." That evening, Sienna sat in her apartment staring at her phone. She wanted to call Andre, to apologize for her mother's behavior, to explain that she didn't share those antiquated views. But she couldn't shake the memory of his carefully controlled expression, the way he'd shut down when faced with her family's disapproval. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe she was being naive to think love could conquer the deeply ingrained prejudices of their respective worlds. Maybe some bridges were too wide to cross, no matter how much she wanted to reach the other side. Sienna didn't sleep that night. She paced her apartment until dawn, replaying every word of her mother's visit, seeing again and again the way Andre's expression had shuddered when faced with Valerie Whitmore's polite but unmistakable disapproval. By Tuesday morning, she'd made a decision. She arrived at the office early, before most of the team, and found Andre already at his desk with his usual cup of coffee and stack of reports. He looked up when she knocked on his doorframe, and she saw a weariness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Of course. Come in." Closed the door. Sienna settled into the chair across from his desk, the same chair where this had all begun, with a job interview that had changed everything. Andre waited patiently, his hands folded, giving her space to find her words. "I owe you an apology," she began, "for yesterday, for my mother's behavior. You don't owe me anything. Parents worry about their children. It's natural." His carefully neutral tone broke her heart. This was the professional Andre, the one who'd built walls to protect himself from exactly this kind of situation. "Andre, please don't do that. Don't shut me out because of what she said. I'm not shutting you out. I'm being realistic." Andre leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Your mother made some valid points yesterday, such as the fact that we come from very different worlds, such as the fact that your family has a certain expectations for your life, expectations that don't include someone like me." Sienna felt panic rise in her chest. "Someone like you? Andre, you're one of the most successful, intelligent, compassionate men I've ever met. Any family would be lucky to Sienna." His voice was gentle but firm. "Let's not pretend this is just about individual merit. Your family has a certain position in society. Getting involved with me would complicate that position in ways you might not fully understand yet. So you're making decisions for me now." The words came out angrier than she intended. "Deciding what I can and can't handle." Andre was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "Tell me something. When you were at that dinner party Saturday night, did you tell those people about working year? About our campaign? About what we've built together?" Sienna's silence was answer enough. "I thought so." Andre's smile was sad. "I don't blame you for that. It's easier to keep worlds separate sometimes." "That's not fair, isn't it, Sienna? I've been where you are." caught between two worlds, try to figure out where I belong. The difference is, I didn't have a choice about which world would accept me. You do." Sienna stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked downtown Ridgeport. Below, people hurried to work, to appointments, to lives that suddenly seemed simpler than her own. "What if I told you I don't care about my family's expectations?" she said, not turning around. "What if I told you that working here, getting to know you, has shown me possibilities I never imagined for my life?" I'd say that's easy to believe right now, when it's theoretical. But what happens when it gets harder? When people start talking, when your family cuts you off, when you realize the social cost of being with someone like me? Sienna turned to face him, and the vulnerability in his expression nearly undid her. This wasn't about protecting her. This was about protecting himself from the pain of being abandoned when things got difficult. "Andre," she said softly, moving back to his desk, "what if I told you I'm already paying a social cost? That I can't have dinner with Spencer without wanting to be somewhere else? That I can't listen to my friends' conversations without thinking about how narrow my world has been?" Something flickered in his eyes. Hope maybe, or the beginning of belief. "What are you saying?" Andre asked quietly. Sienna took a deep breath, knowing she was about to jump off a cliff with no guarantee of where she'd land. "I'm saying that I've been living other people's expectations my entire life. I'm saying that meeting you, working with you, has shown me who I could be if I had the courage to choose my own path." She moved closer to his desk, her heart pounding. "I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, and I don't care who knows it." The words hung in air between them. Irreversible and terrifying and absolutely true. Andre stood slowly, coming around his desk, until he was standing directly in front of her. When he reached out to touch her face, his hand was trembling slightly. "Sienna," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "do you understand what you're saying? We're choosing. I'm choosing you," she said simply. "I'm choosing us. I'm choosing the possibility of something real and beautiful and worth fighting for." Andre studied her face for a long moment, searching for doubt or hesitation. When he found none, his smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Are you sure?" he asked, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to the way things were." "I don't want to go back," Sienna said, leaning into his touch. "I want to go forward with you." When Andre kissed her, it was soft and sweet and full of promises. Sienna felt something settle into place in her chest, like a puzzle piece she'd been carrying around, finally finding its home. When they broke apart, Andre rested his forehead against hers. "Your family's going to hate this," he said. "Some of them will, but that's their choice, not mine." Sienna smiled, feeling lighter than she had in days. "Besides, you haven't met my grandmother yet. She's going to adore you." Andre laughed, the sound rich and warm. "How can you be so sure?" "Because she's the one who taught me that the most important thing in life is choosing people who make you want to be better than you are." Sienna looked into his eyes, seeing her future reflected there. "You made me want to be better, Andre. You made me want to be brave." "You're already brave," he said, pulling her closer. "You just proved it." As they stood together in his office, surrounded by the life he'd built through determination and hard work, Sienna realized she wasn't choosing between two worlds. She was choosing to build a new one where love mattered more than social standing, where character mattered more than background, where two people could create something beautiful together, regardless of what anyone else thought. It was terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely right. For the first time in her life, Sienna Whitmore was exactly where she belonged. The news of Sienna and Andre's relationship spread through Ridgeport's social circles like wildfire, reaching her family before she had a chance to tell them herself. Sienna discovered this when she arrived home from work 3 days later to find both her parents waiting in the formal living room, a location reserved for serious family discussions. "Sit down, Sienna," her father said without preamble. Franklin Whitmore had built his banking empire through careful calculation and controlled emotion. But tonight, his composure was strained. I assume you know why we're here, Valerie added, her usual perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the stress lines around her eyes. Sienna remained standing, drawing strength from a memory of Andre's arms around her that morning as they'd shared coffee in his office. I assume someone saw us having dinner last night and felt compelled to report back. This isn't a joke, Sienna. Franklin's voice carried the authority that had cowed boardrooms full of executives. Do you have any idea what people are saying? I imagine they're saying exactly what you'd expect them to say. Sienna replied calmly. The question is whether you're going to listen to gossip or trust your daughter's judgment. Valerie stood and walked to the window, her back rigid with tension. Spencer came to see us yesterday. He's devastated, Sienna. He can't understand how you could throw away everything you've built together. Spencer and I never built anything together, Sienna said gently. We just exist in the same social space and let everyone assume we'd end up married. And what's wrong with that? Franklin demanded. Spencer is a good match, successful, from a good family, shares your values and background. You could have a wonderful life together. I could have a predictable life together, Sienna corrected. There's a difference. And you think this Andre Callahan can offer you something better? Valerie turned from the window, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Sienna, I've done research on his background. He's from a completely different world. A world where people work for what they achieve. Sienna interrupted. A world where character matters more than connections. A world where someone can build a successful business from nothing through talent and determination. A world where you don't belong, Franklin said bluntly. Sienna, you're a Whitmore. That means something in this city, something your children would have inherited. Are you really willing to throw that away? For what? Infatuation? Sienna felt her composure waver for the first time. It's not infatuation, Dad. It's love. Real love. With someone who sees me as more than just a name and a trust fund. Love, Valerie said bitterly, doesn't pay bills, or provide security, or guarantee acceptance in society. Love doesn't protect you when people whisper behind your back, or exclude you from their circles. Maybe those aren't the circles I want to be part of anymore. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Sienna saw her parents exchange a look that spoke of decades of marriage, of shared values and expectations that their daughter was now rejecting. If you continue this relationship, Franklin said slowly, there will be consequences. Social consequences, professional consequences, financial consequences. Sienna's heart clenched, but her voice remained steady. Are you threatening to cut me off? I'm telling you that actions have repercussions, Franklin replied. The family name has opened doors for you your entire life. If you choose to distance yourself from family expectations, those doors may close. Then I'll open my own doors, Sienna said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. Andre has shown me that's possible. Valerie moved closer, her expression shifting from anger to desperation. Sienna, please think about what you're giving up. The life you've always known, the security, the respect, the cage, Sienna added quietly. You're asking me to choose a beautiful cage over the possibility of actually living. Franklin's voice rose for the first time. What do you call what you've had here? We've given you everything. Education, opportunities, love. You've given me everything except the chance to choose my own path, Sienna said, her own voice breaking slightly. I love you both. I'm grateful for everything you've provided, but I won't sacrifice my happiness for your approval anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Sienna could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, marking seconds that felt like hours. Finally, Valerie spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. And if we can't accept this choice? Sienna felt tears prick her eyes, but her resolve didn't waver. Then I hope someday you'll change your minds. But I won't change mine. She walked toward the door, then paused without turning around. I love him, Mom. Dad, he makes me want to be the best version of myself. Isn't that what you've always wanted from me? To be happy. Neither parent answered, and Sienna left them in the formal living room that suddenly felt like a mausoleum of expectations she could no longer fulfill.